Have you ever wanted to start a business based on a passion of yours, like golf? For me, golf was an easy answer. I loved watching Tiger Woods on Sundays dominate the field. I wanted to be a touring professional and travel the world, win millions of dollars, playing golf and living the lifestyle. But I just didn't have the skills it took, and I didn't want to, frankly, invest the time or effort to get on tour. So what was I good at? What could I do? It was business. I'm good at business. I'm good at marketing and technology. So I figured, why not find something that allows me to get into the industry that I love? And I found something. I had this brilliant idea. At least I thought it was a brilliant idea. And I wanted to make normal people, weekend golfers, I wanted to make them feel like touring pros. And I had this great idea to buy this new piece of technology that was just being used on the tour. Nobody really knew what it was. Most people didn't. But if you were a passionate golfer, you understood what it was. So I bought this $25,000 piece of equipment. There's a lot of mistakes, that I made starting that business and going along the way. I want to share that with you today, because if you're looking at starting a business, especially in a passion of yours, there's some things that you need to watch out for, things that can cloud your mind, cloud your the reasoning ability, because you love the sport or the business or the concept so much that it can cloud, the reason and the logic that needs to take place, especially if you're trying to make money, which is what a business is there for. So before I can dive into that, I want to tell you how I got to the point of wanting to invest in $25,000 piece of equipment that I didn't know if I was going to make the money back or not. Back in the day, about 10, 15 years ago, I started to get into golf a lot more. I didn't really play high school golf. I didn't play high school golf. I wasn't that good. And then I started to get better, and I started to learn the game more, and I started to really develop a passion for it. And at this time, I was like, well, I wonder what it takes to be a professional golfer. Can anybody be a professional golfer? And so I looked into it, and lo and behold, yeah. Anyone, literally anyone, can be a professional golfer. Today, if you want to be and call yourself a professional golfer, you can do that. You just deem yourself a professional golfer, and you basically give up your ability to be an amateur and have that amateur status. I'm not going to dive into the details of the USGA and how they look at this, but that's what I did. I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a professional golfer. So I decided to do that, and I played at the Wyoming Open, and I played in the qualifier for the Colorado Open. You can go and probably find my scores. Trust me, I shouldn't have been out there, especially as a professional. But you can do it. And this is what I'm trying to say is there's always ways to get around things. And just because there's structure and there's these things that might be walled up and gated, there's always ways to get in. So that allowed me to start talking with some more of the professionals. And I talked with one of the head professionals at a local course in Denver, and he was nice enough to let me basically have my business on his driving range. And Dave Troyer, if you're watching this, thank you. That was Common Ground Golf Course I think it's technically Denver, maybe it's Aurora, but it's right on the border. I think it's a Denver golf course. But Common Ground Golf Course, Dave Troyer, thank you. You allowed me to kickstart my business. And the business was basically, at the time, the concept was to allow average, ordinary golfers feel like a touring pro. And back in the day, nowadays it's just common, but there's this tool, this piece of equipment called a TrackMan. Now, TrackMans, you'll notice when you're watching on the tour, are those green plates. They look like 1 foot by 1 foot square plates that are up and behind the golfers, and they track radar. They're basically Doppler radar systems. They track swing speeds, clubhead speeds, launch angles, carry distance, all of those metrics that you see when you're watching golf. They actually have them for baseball and for soccer and for other sports as well. But TrackMan was really into golf at the time, and that's where they really got started with tracking all of these metrics. And so it was a new technology on tour, and I was like, diehard golfers, they'll spend money on anything. So I figured, why not start a business that allows them to basically track on the driving range, compare their stats and be able to see their launch angles, their spin rates, how far they're carrying the ball. Unfortunately, for most people, it was kind of an ego bust because they weren't carrying it nearly as far as they thought they were. So the idea was that to make these people feel like they're on tour. One of the coolest ideas that I had was actually to pair up with a local tour. An amateur tour. It was the Golf Channel AM Tour. And they had different local, regional, or local, I don't know which clubs, I guess. I forget what they're called. But basically, for the Denver metro area in California, there might have been, probably 10 different clubs in those regions. And then at the end of the year, they have the national championships, which I actually was able to play in. Again, I'm not that good, but I was able to play in the national championships. I forget what year it was. I'm sure you can Google my name and see how awful. I think I took an 11 on one hole. Anyway, I digress. So if you're playing on these tours, what they do is they have these tournaments, normally like every weekend or every other weekend throughout the summer. And then at the culmination of the end of the year, they have the national championships somewhere nice, like Southern California or in the desert or something like that. But while they're in the local area, I said, well, I approached the guy that was running the local chapter. And I said, would you let me track these guys on par fives, not charge them anything, but basically allow them to track their stats, just like on the tour. I was like, this is the coolest idea. I was like, I would have paid for it. I didn't charge for it because I didn't want to impede on the Golf Channel's AM Tour. And Charlie, thank you, Charlie, for letting me do this. But so I set up my TrackMan on these par fives, specifically the par fives I knew were going to be like long drive potential par fives. And I set up a system so I could track all the players. I had the tee sheets, so I knew all of their names. And I even bought a generator because it was out in the middle of the golf course. And there was no power. So I bought a really quiet, I think it was a Honda generator. I had this tent that had my logo on that it could keep shade on me. Hooked up, I even had a TV. I think it was like a 27-inch TV that it plugged into so people could turn around and see their stats. It was pretty legit. I'm not lying. I mean, I'm usually early to these things, and that's exactly what happened. So you can imagine, you get on the tee box and you got a little bit more pressure. Actually, some people didn't like it because it was almost like a gallery watching you hit golf balls. Not only golf balls, but in tournament play. But again, it was like a tour experience. So after they hit, they would always come back around and watch, and they would be really interested in seeing, the stats and, distance. And especially if guys like bombed it, like some of these guys, there was a few bombers out there, and it was always fun to watch them, 121 mile an hour clubhead speeds and launch angles, spin rates, and just kind of look at them. And then you got the older guys, but even the older guys that couldn't hit the ball as far were still really interested in this. And so the passion was there, and I could tell that they were really into it. Unfortunately, it was hard for me to scale that. I was trying to replicate the PGA Tour with me, one person, one TrackMan, and about $30,000 worth of equipment I was just toting around. So that's the idea. Now, what it turned into is it turned into a glorified teaching or instructing business, unfortunately. So back in the day, there was these, I say back in the day, it sounds like I'm super old, but back in the day, there were these like sites like Groupon, which are, coupon or discount sites. I don't even know if it even still exists. It probably does, but so Groupon was this business that allowed you to advertise on their sites, in essence, basically getting attention or getting access to these people that were looking for golf lessons or golf instruction or golf-related lessons or practice sessions. Unfortunately, because of my idea was so new, and I wanted to use it during the week and basically try to make money off of this thing outside of those Golf Channel AM tours. I wanted to try to offer it during the week and the days that wasn't being used for those tournaments at the driving range. And so, like I said, at Common Ground Golf Course, I set up my tent. I got my TV, I got my generator going, and people were like, what is this thing? And so people would come up. Some people would set up lessons on Groupon. And I think I was making like 30, 40 bucks a session. Unfortunately, that's not easy to pay off a $30,000 investment of equipment, primarily the TrackMan. And so I became a glorified teaching professional. I wasn't a PGA professional. I didn't go through the classes required. I had a good friend that was a PGA professional and knew a lot of them, and definitely didn't go through all of that. So I didn't have the clout, but I did have this cool tool, and people were digging it. People loved it. But unfortunately, it never made enough money. So some of the big mistakes that I made was letting that passion for what I wanted overtake like what is a sound business decision. Now, I also had to put my time into this. I could have hired somebody to, teenager to, basically do what I was doing. But quite honestly, I didn't trust anybody with this $25,000 thing that could easily be broken. In fact, I became a TrackMan certified professional. I literally went deep and fast into this business. And I took all the tests, and technically it wasn't that difficult, but I took all of the tests to become a certified TrackMan professional. I could basically look at their stats and determine spin rates, loft, angles, and figure out ways to help them understand how to hit shots better. Whether it was a more experienced player and trying to hit a draw or a fade versus maybe a newer person that just wasn't making solid contact or wanted to validate that their slice they were coming over the top with because it also had video. So the things that I learned from this business were really set me up for these other businesses that I would start later on. Number one, in a passion business, you have to look at it and say, how much time am I going to be investing into this? Am I doing that because I love it? And am I willing to, or am I investing too much time into something that's not giving me the return for my time invested because I just enjoy being there? So you have to think about that. Also, you have to look at it from a product perspective. The moment that I accepted Groupon tickets or Groupon discounts was the worst thing I could have done, because then I had set the precedent, right? I should have been charging well over $100 an hour for use of this tool and for my input. It was basically a golf lesson with I was at the driving range hitting real golf balls into the range. If you're a golfer, you understand what I'm saying. You understand that you want to experience exactly what the tour pros are experiencing, and you want to have it outside in real life conditions. The one thing that I wasn't able to set up, which I did reach out to a local club, was hitting off of decent golf balls. The hardest thing to replicate is hitting a good golf ball on a driving range. Most driving ranges use really cheap, hard balls that last a long time, but they don't have the hitting characteristics as like a Titleist Pro V1. There was a local golf club that was looking at allowing me to be there, and they use Pro V1s on their range, but it was a private club, so I wasn't going to be able to get a lot of clientele there. But I should have probably focused on that, because these are more wealthy people, and these people that have money are willing to spend pretty much anything on golf if it allows them to hit the ball further or have bragging rights on the golf course with their buddies that are part of the country club. If they had a spin rate of a certain amount, or launch angles, or swing speeds, whatever it might be. I should have done that. So what I'm trying to tell you is when you're looking at a passion project, really you have to be more logical about it. And unfortunately, I think they don't marry up really well. Like if you're really passionate about something and you start a business in it, if you can find a product or a service that allows you to get paid well and to make it worth your time financially so that you don't have to have income from other places, then maybe. But starting in a business like that, the moment I took Groupon, discounted my services, and basically became open for business to, I wouldn't say, they're just newer players, people that were, I had some people that had first time they were playing golf, and just that wasn't what it was meant for. So clearly defining what your ideal avatar or your ideal person, your customer, what they look like. These are going to be people for golf. Generally, it's going to be higher income people. They most likely are part of a country club. They're willing to spend any amount of money to make their score better, make them enjoy the game better. You want to find that product and service fit for that customer. For me in golf, it just, again, once I started accepting these Groupon tickets or Groupon discounts, it spiraled out of control. And then I wasn't charging the guys on the Am Tour to get this service, primarily because I didn't want to have to deal with the Golf Channel and the legal and like setting all that up. So I just was like, well, if I get enough of those players interested to do sessions outside of that, would have maybe financially been acceptable. But I'd already, like I said, I already put in about $30,000 with the TrackMan, the tent, the generator, all the TV and all of the setup, and then let alone I had to travel and drive to these places. I mean, I would drive up into the mountains, up into Vail, wherever this amateur tour was going. So, and then it would be a whole day event. So it was all of my time. Gosh, have you liked this video? Creating this video was one of those things I was like, I'm going to try to make it useful to somebody. Hopefully it has been useful. If it has, hit like. Let me know down in the comments if there's a business that you thought of or you did start that you're like, oh, I totally screwed up in that business. Would love to hear that. Hit subscribe too. If this is stuff that you enjoy, I've got a lot more coming your way. This has been one of these businesses, one of many businesses that I've started. And it didn't work out financially, but it was really cool. And I'm glad I was a part of it. I was glad I was able to do it. And maybe that's one thing that I'll leave you with is the worst thing that you can do is not pursue the thing. The worst thing that can happen is not losing the money. It's not taking the risk and trying the thing. I learned that a long time ago. And it does take a lot of risk. And some people just aren't cut out for it, quite honestly. One of the videos that I'm thinking of is, how to know you're cut out for being an entrepreneur. And a lot of people aren't. A lot of people aren't willing to take a risk on themselves, financially, whatever it is, putting themselves out there and saying, hey, this is probably not going to work out, but I'm willing to give it a shot. If that's you, then stick around. I've got a lot more cool things coming your way. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day and go waste some money on a business.